Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. President Biden addressing the nation about the deadly shooting today at a Nashville elementary school. But while lawmakers on both sides are speaking out, different stances toward gun control remain in place. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation.
President Biden again calls for a ban on certain types of semi-automatic firearms. It comes as a Monday shooting at a Nashville elementary school and killed at least 3 adults and 3 children.
The shooter in this situation reportedly had 2 assault weapons and a pistol, 2 AK-47. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban.
Officials said the shooter was armed with a handgun and at least 2 of what they called assault-type rifles. The 28-year-old female shooter, who the police said once attended the school, was later shot dead by police inside the school building. And the White House on Monday took aim at Republicans when addressing the shooting.
How many more children have to be murdered before Republicans in Congress will step up and act to pass the assault weapons ban?
On Monday, Marsha Blackburn, the Republican senator from Tennessee, said on Twitter that she was heartbroken by the shooting in her state and that her office was ready to help. And Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, a frequent critic of gun control measures backed by the Biden administration, also took to Twitter to send prayers. Just days ago, Boebert defended her stance on guns at a hearing on Second Amendment rights.
I have not seen my Democrat colleagues defend innocent life, but they want to use these talking points of children in tragic, horrible scenarios as a political pawn to regulate law-abiding citizens.
The White House on Monday did not say whether it had any recent discussions with Republicans on the issue of gun control, but any significant measures on this front will face an uphill battle in Congress as Republicans hold a narrow majority in the House and Democrats hold a slim majority in the Senate. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Lawmakers take a stand against China's state-sponsored live forced organ harvesting. That is, the Chinese Communist regime's systematic act of forcibly taking organs from living prisoners of conscience to sell. The House voting to condemn this practice tonight, and NTD's Melina Wisecup is on Capitol Hill with more details. Melina, what more can you tell us?
So the realization that the Chinese Communist Party has been involved in forcibly taking organs from prisoners of conscience first emerged more than a decade ago, and since then many local cities around the U.S. have passed resolutions to condemn this. And now what's happening here is Congress is taking federal action on this. Now specifically, the bill aims to hold Chinese Communist Party officials accountable and punish them if they are engaged in forced organ harvesting, and the bill will do that by providing the U.S. tools, for example, to sanction those CCP officials or block them from obtaining visas or passports. Another thing this bill aims to do is to better inform Americans of this issue so they're not unknowingly going to China to get organs from people that they may not even know have been forcibly taken from prisoners of conscience. Now, earlier we did speak to the lead sponsor of this bill, Congressman Chris Smith, who has been working on this issue here in Congress for more than 25 years. He goes into more depth on the issue. We'll play that interview now for you.
This cruelty that is unimaginable, to think of 28-year-olds being marched into these hospitals, arrested simply because they're Falun Gong or Uyghurs or some other disadvantaged group, to have their bodies invaded in a way that kills them and provides 2 to 3 organs per person for the Chinese Communist Party. This is a cruelty that is unimaginable. The victims, in terms of loss of life and loss of organs, are the Chinese people. They are, again, disproportionately young and very, very healthy. They prey upon the Falun Gong, for example, because they are so healthy. There are these 301, there's a 301 hospital, that's what it's called, in Beijing, and there are other hospitals like it, where forced organ harvesting is being done to inure to the benefit of Chinese Communist Party officials. So if Xi Jinping himself needs a new heart or liver or lungs or anything else, he will go to that hospital and he will get the organs from someone that he despises, which are the Falun Gong and Uyghurs and others that they have on the hate list. I mean, that just bespeaks again, another level of cruelty that most Americans need to know about.
Why do you think it has taken Congress so long to act on this?
Great question. A lot of it has to do with disbelief. A lot of people do not think that this is really happening, just like they don't think the other human rights abuses are happening either. The State Department does a modest amount of reporting, but I don't see any linkage to actual policy. Where is the President, the Secretary of State, right on down the line, but starting with the President and the Vice President, raising this face-to-face with Xi Jinping and their interlocutors as they meet? Have you heard of it? I haven't. And it's about time it was front and center, because it is also a tip of the iceberg of all the other abuse that goes on each and every day in prisons, especially the use and the pervasive use of torture.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you so much.
Now, this bill did gain support from Republicans and Democrats. China has been a main focus for the House during this Congress. A similar bill passed the House previously a couple of years ago, but it has since stalled in the Senate for years. Now, during this Congress, Senators Chris Coons, a Democrat, and a Republican, Senator Tom Cotton, did introduce a bill over on the Senate side. So now essentially it's in the Senate's court. It's up to Senate leaders to really make this a priority.
Melina, thank you for that. The grand jury investigating former President Trump is reportedly back hearing evidence today. This comes after Trump's first presidential campaign rally this year. New national polls showing Trump clearly leading over possible contender Ron DeSantis.
According to a law enforcement source, the Manhattan grand jury investigating former President Trump met on Monday afternoon. A key figure in the investigation was seen Monday leaving the Manhattan building where the grand jury usually meets. That individual, David Pecker, is a longtime Trump ally. Trump allegedly asked Pecker to make hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Monday marked the second time that Pecker was seen at the Manhattan building. Some say this suggests that his testimony could be crucial to prosecutors. As the case goes on, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg arrived at his office in New York under tight security. Monday's hearing is the first in the past 7 days. A week ago, Robert Costello testified on behalf of former President Trump. House Republicans are currently probing DA Bragg's investigation into Trump. This comes as many suspect the investigation is being done for political purposes. Over the weekend, Bragg responded to Republicans' probe, saying it is not appropriate for Congress to interfere in pending local investigations. This unprecedented inquiry by federal elected officials into an ongoing matter serves only to hinder, disrupt, and undermine the legitimate work of our dedicated prosecutors. Meanwhile, on Monday morning, Harvard's Center for Political Studies published a new poll. They asked voters who they'd vote for if the Republican primaries were held now. Trump got 50% of the vote, while DeSantis received 24%. The voters had been surveyed just days before Trump held the first rally of his 2024 campaign in Waco, Texas. He suggested that investigations into him were politically motivated and a weaponization of the justice system.
The Biden regime's weaponization of law enforcement against their political opponent is something straight out of the Stalinist Russian horror show.
Trump also laid out a 4-year plan, saying if elected, he would revoke China's most favored nation status. He'd phase out all Chinese imports of essential goods and gain total independence from China. It's still not clear when the Manhattan grand jury will vote on a possible indictment of Trump. Reporting by Ariane Pazdar, NTD News.
A lot of attention on the 2024 Republican primary, and to discuss the candidates and the dynamics of the race, we just had a chance to speak with Hogan Gidley, former White House Deputy Press Secretary under the Trump administration. Hogan Gidley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Hogan, 2016 GOP presidential primary field is starting to fill in. What are your thoughts? Is this going to be anything like 2016, better, worse? How are you feeling?
Look, I think it's always good to have a very robust conversation about the issues. I would say at this stage, just knowing what I know about the candidates who are in the field, the candidates who are going to enter the field, most all people that aren't Donald Trump are going to say, I'm Donald Trump's policies without his personality, implying that his baggage they don't care for, they like the policies, that's where they're going to be. I would argue that a lot of his personality is what got the policies that so many people liked in this country. So, you know, I think it's going to be a big field. I think our side is well more accomplished. Our side is ready to go on day one. The left is struggling with Pothole Pete and Kamala that don't seem to get any traction or any popularity at all. Biden's obviously a mess. So our bench is deep. That's good, with Pompeo potentially getting in, Tim Scott, my senator from South Carolina, and so many others. Vivek is great, really smart guy. Obviously Donald Trump, and now he can point to, you know, we don't have to go back to Reagan and say, wow, look how good we were, 30, 40 years ago. We can actually say just 2 years ago we were this good when we focused on those America First policies. And that really is going to be the big winner here, because everyone's pushing for the prescriptions that really go to improve the lives of all Americans, regardless of race, religion, color, or creed, which is what Donald Trump did. Those policies that put this country first are the ones that everyone likes, whether you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, male, female. That's the thing that people want to see from their politicians, because they don't really care necessarily on the margins of being far right, far left. They want to know what's going to uplift them. And those policies that Donald Trump put in place are the ones that did just that. So I think they're going to be looking for a return to that, and not this woke leftist ideology nonsense with open borders and high crime, high taxes, and being subservient to the rest of the world like the Biden administration wants us to be. So I think you can expect a return to that regardless of who the nominee is.
Hogan, you mentioned quite a few names, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy. You didn't mention Governor DeSantis. If he gets in, does the Republican Party run the risk of imploding?
Oh, no, I would argue the opposite. I think any time you can highlight the policies that made this country great, that's a good thing, regardless of who the standard bearer is. Look, will there be a fight? Sure. Will it be bloody? Most likely bloody? Sure. But in large measure, DeSantis brings a lot to the table. Governance, good governance of a big state like Florida, very popular. He just won by 20 points. I wish he'd have come here. I think you kind of miss an opportunity to talk to some of the rank and file, the ones who actually do the blocking and tackling needed to win states like Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. But there's plenty of time for that. I think these people here are so excited to see a return to sanity and rational, reasonable policies that they're going to be excited, I think, about anybody who comes forward for sure. Now,
so you mentioned Trump in your previous answer, and it was his personality is in part what got him elected, although some people don't seem to think so. A more nuanced question I have for you is Trump's, wealth and being independently wealthy. Do you think that has allowed him to kind of withstand the swamp to a certain degree? Because people probably don't really understand, even I don't, the extent of everybody that's coming for you.
No question. When you were able to do things like have peace deals that no one thought possible, trade deals that benefited American workers, bring back hostages at record rates without giving away the store, making sure other countries paid their fair share in these deals, which is a huge undersold accomplishment that he did. Lower taxes, of course, attending the March for Life, putting Supreme Court justices in place. All that happened in the face of 93% negative news coverage. I don't think people understood. When he talked about draining the swamp, he did a great job in draining it. But there are still bottom feeders in that mud and that murk at the lowest levels, and we've seen that now inside places like the DOD or the FBI or those three-letter agencies that targeted someone like Donald Trump, that targets American citizens today. I don't think people realized how deep it actually was. I didn't realize it. I'm not saying I did. And so you need somebody who's going to go in there and say, I don't need this for future political gain. I want this for the future of the country and the gain of the American people to succeed in their lives like they haven't been able to the last 2 years. That matters, I think, to a majority of Americans. And so that personality, you're going to need some of that to fight back just how brutal the onslaught is.
Hogan Gidley, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.